Okay, welcome back. So we're going to continue our discussion on strings, and in particular, we're going to look at some string functions. These are built-in functions. These are built-in functionality that is included in the string library. I'm going to focus this video on three functions, and again, they're built in, right? So you can use the library string.h, right? If you include that library, there's some very helpful built-in functionality that tends. These are the ones that there's a whole bunch of them, but we're going to focus the video on three that are very, very commonly used and are very helpful through a whole wide range of things that we tend to want to build. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the string length function, the string copy function, and the string compare function. Okay, and again, if you don't include the library, the string library for these, you're not going to be able to use them. All right, so it's important to not forget that you need to have those there. All right, so what do I mean by the string length? Well, what that does is it's kind of similar to something we started looking at in the prior video. And in this, the functionality for this is we imagine we have a string. Maybe we declared a string and we might have a maximum size of 8. We looked at this in the prior video. We say, well, okay, we've got this string, and we make space for 8 characters. So this is the max size. Okay. However, we're only using these 5 characters plus. Okay, we're also using 1 for the null terminator. Okay, what we have in this case is the string length. The string length function is going to provide the length for just the, not counting the null terminator. Okay. All right, so it'll give us the size 5. So let's do a little bit of an example with this. Let's code something up. Right, if we come over here and we look at writing a little bit of code, what's kind of helpful about this is it helps us being able to iterate the string and be able to check some things. So maybe I've got a string here, and I might even make it way bigger than we're going to use. Okay, I'll make it for max size of 128. Okay, and when we look at this, right, let me prompt the user to enter a string. Okay. And maybe, we'll use the scanf here. So it's important that I don't include white space, right? I don't include white space if I'm using scanf. And maybe, I'm going to say enter a first name. All right, we'll do it as that example. Okay, so we're going to prompt someone to enter their name. All right, and what we're going to do is I'm going to print here the number of characters in the first name is blank. Okay, and I could use the string length function. Okay, this here, when I say function, we're going to look deeper at these later, but we're thinking in terms of inputs and outputs. We're passing in the string, and this is going to give us the output, the number of characters that make up that string. So then I can print this out, called num chars, num characters. Okay, we'll print that out. And this is going to do really what you expect it to do, right? Let me run this. Okay, and so if we give you an example, right, if I do, say, Jonathan here, it says there's 8 characters, right? Notice it's actually storing 9, right? Remember, there is one more, the null character, the null terminator that's not shown. It's not actually printed out, okay? So it says 8. And if I had typed in something else, like a shorter version of that, right? If I did like a different name, or for John, it's three characters, okay? So keep in mind, right, the max, there's a difference between the max size that the variable can hold. The string can hold up to 128, and the length is telling us how many we're actually using up to that null terminator, okay? Now you're gonna see a video after this one where actually I will show you how this, without going too deep without going into functions, which is a topic for another day, showing you the logic behind what's going on there, what that's doing. And it's literally walking through every element in the string until it's counting every character until it hits the null terminator. Okay. All right. So that's the first one, right? Now, another thing I could do, actually, before I move on here, is this does allow us to do something like this, too. I could use this in a loop as an example, and I could print every character in the string. Okay. So remember, a string is just an array. I could use it just like any other array. It's just an array of characters. This is going to print every character in the string, in the array. Okay, maybe I'll add a new line character after that, just to and we can reference each character in the string using that notation. Okay, so it's actually pretty common to see things like this, where you're using string length as part of a loop. Okay, and we'll also see that in the next video where we do some examples with strings. So all right, so if I run this, right, you're gonna see this is gonna print the string out. Okay, so I enter first name, right, and this loop here printed each character out one at a time, so effectively printed the string. It's the same thing as doing a printf, the format specifier for a string followed by the name of the string. So the next function we want to look at is the string copy function. And this function, the best way to describe it is to show what it's not, right? Or what your intuition is, what it's logically doing, and a really, really common mistake that people make. Super common, okay? And so let me show you the common mistake first, and I'm going to put a big X, right, indicating not to do this, okay? And that's your intuition, right, is if you want to set one string equal to another, or copy a string, is maybe that like string 2 equals string 1, okay? Now, however, we cannot do that. We cannot do that, right? That's going to be an error, okay? Right? This is going to generate an error, and the reason it has to do with that strings are arrays, okay? We cannot do that. We cannot use this operation, okay, for arrays, okay? And it's because it means something different. It means something different. Now, I won't go into the full explanation here because we're going to save that to another video where we talk about pointers. But effectively what's going on, I'm just going to give you the shorthand, is what you're indicating using the equals like that is if we have something, we have like a string like ABC, right? If that is string 1, okay, string 1, what is actually happening, since it's an array, is string 1 just contains, it points to the location in memory. It says, hey, string 1 is stored in a certain location. And we use the equals like that. What you're trying to do is set string 2 to be equal to the same location in memory. Okay, that's not a copy. That is not a copy. Okay. You're referring to the same underlying location in memory, right? And we'll look at how we can actually do that with the syntax and everything to do that later on. We're not going to go into that now. Okay, I just want you to understand conceptually why that doesn't work, so that kind of sticks with you. But the full explanation we'll cover in much more detail. Effectively, right? What I do want to show you, though, is something where it effectively can break down. Okay, or what will happen if you try to do that. Okay, and so if I do this, right, string 2, right, and if I say, hey, let's have string 2 equals string 1, okay, let me compile that. We're going to get an error here. Okay, let's just take a look at the error message so that we can kind of, I want to show it to you so that if it comes up, on your own, you can kind of remember that this is the nature of the issue. So it's saying, okay, hey, this line has a problem. Assignment with expression with array type, okay? And that's indicating that we cannot use the equal sign like that for two arrays, okay? Because it means something different. We can look at how we can set them to point to that one array effectively points to the, have something like called S2, refer to the same memory location as string 1, but we'll do that later. And if you're not getting all the details of that, that's okay, right? I'm kind of foreshadowing what we're going to see at a later date, okay? Effectively, well, what do you need to know at this point, right? Well, and to get this to work, right, to make a copy of it, we need to use this string copy. And I'm going to say S2 equals S1 this way. Okay, where we're going to copy the value of S1 over into string 2. Okay, so if I print them both out, S1, okay, and I print out S2, okay, we're going to see that we're going to print ABC twice, right? Okay. And we know that these are two different locations, two different arrays, because if I went here, right, I don't have to. Let me clarify something here too. Is that this is a point that's very, very easy to miss. Look at line 7 here. Okay. When I declare a string, I can use the single equals. Okay. This is confusing. I admit this is confusing, but that's why I'm trying to really emphasize it. When I declare a string, I can use the single equals to initialize it. Okay. After you're done declaring it, you can no longer do that. Okay. It means something different when you're declaring it. Okay. Right. No. So so for instance, line 8, I cannot do this now and do something like that. Okay. This is wrong. I cannot do that. Okay, so if I want to initialize it to something, I have to copy it over, right? Now, I don't have to have a string as what's on the right side here, right? This is a string 2 equals string 1. Okay, I could also do something like this. I'm going to change S1 here. Okay, and what this is going to show, I want to indicate here is that I could also put double quotes and put a string that way, and this will make string 1 equal to XYZ, right? Now, when I run this also illustrates the fact that we're using two different locations in memory, because notice they're not the same value. Okay, I set S2 equal to S1 when S1 was ABC. Okay, then I change the value of S1 to be XYZ, right? And it's two different values, right? Two different values are shown there. Okay, so remember, key thing to remember, you can only use the single equals for a string, okay, when you're declaring it. Okay, and that's actually similar, that's the same idea for arrays. We could do that with arrays too, right? When we're declaring an array, like an integer array, okay, I can use the curly brackets here to do something like this, okay, and initialize it, okay? After I'm done declaring it, I cannot do that again, right? I have to do something else to initialize it, all right? So it's the same idea, okay? Just different syntax behind it. All right, okay, now I want to show you one more function before we wrap this up. Okay, so here the double equals is rarely used for strings, okay? After the declaration, you have to use string copy, okay? This also holds true for the double equals, right? We know that if we have two integers, we saw this, right? If we've got two integers, I could check if they're equal doing the double equals, right? Right? We've seen that a whole bunch of times. If I'm doing a logical comparison saying, hey, is x equal to y? And this is gonna evaluate to true or false, right? In this case, it'll be false, right? So the double equals is a comparison, right? I cannot do that for strings and arrays like that, okay? I cannot do that for strings and arrays, the double equals, okay? So let me show you how you can do something equivalent, okay, to compare strings, okay? and we're going to use something called the string compare, strcmp. We can actually use this to determine if one string is before or after another one in alphabetical order. But what I care about really is I care about if you're able to determine if two strings are equal or not. Most of the time, that's what you're doing, all right? Although the logic is quite similar if you want to look for alphabetical order. So, what string compare is doing, all right, is again we don't want to use the double equals for strings. Okay, we don't want to do that. Instead, what we want to do, right, is the correct way, okay, is to do something like this. If string compare, right, and we compare string 1 to string 2, okay, and if that returns 0, right, this expression here, if S1 and S2 are equal, okay, this will become 0, okay, and then it could actually be 1 or -1 would be the other options, and that depends on if one string is greater than the other in alphabetical order. Okay, so we're not really going to worry about that, but that's get a sense of what they are, right? If we check for like less than 0, we're checking if one string comes before the other string in alphabetical order, or the reverse if it's greater than 0. Okay, but most of the times what we're going to see is we're checking if they're equal, then it's a pretty minor variation to go the other direction. Okay, all right, so that's what that's doing. And we could test this, right? We can come back to our code example here, and let's just have the user enter two strings. So I enter string 1, right? Maybe we'll declare two strings. We'll make them way bigger than needed. I'll just call S1 and S2. We'll just keep names nice and small. So, okay, enter string 1, scanf, %s, string 1. Okay, we'll enter string 2. So we'll prompt the user to enter that information. Okay, and then I'm just going to say, hey, are they equal? So I'm going to string compare S1, S2, and check if they're equal. Okay. And if else they are not equal, okay, so let's test it. And we'll test it both ways. We'll throw an example where we type in the same thing, and then we'll type in something where they're different. Okay, so we'll do like ABC, ABC. Okay, it says that they're equal. And confirm this works. Let's type in something where they're not. We'll do ABC, and then we'll do something similar, AB, and then I'll do X. Okay, so they're not equal. Okay, so again, right, that's the correct way to do it. Do not do this, right? Do not do this. Okay. Let me compile and run this with the mistake. Again, this is a mistake. Okay, here's the really subtle thing about this, right? You're not getting a compile error, right? So I'm going to show an example here where these are the same values, ABC, ABC. Okay, notice it said that they're not equal. What we're effectively comparing here with the double equals, and this is why it doesn't generate a compile error, is you're asking if they point to the same location in memory. Are they in the same memory address? Which they're not, but the values are the same. So that's why we need to use string compare, is we're actually checking the value of the strings, right? Equals and double equals, when it comes to strings, when it comes to arrays, they mean different things. They're checking different things than what you're typically conceptually trying to do. Okay, that's why we need to use the string compare. All right, we'll follow up on this. We'll use these functions in follow-up video. We'll practice them. They're super handy, and I will also provide some documentation for you that you can use for homeworks, exams, and so forth, that just kind of remind you of what the functions are doing, right? So that you don't have to memorize everything, but that you have something to reference, which can be helpful. Okay. Over time, you tend to memorize them because they're commonly used. Okay, so we'll stop there. We'll practice more. We'll see some examples in a subsequent video.